The shocking truth. 4. Common fish seniors must stop eating after 60. If you're over 60, this isn't clickbait. It's a warning that could protect your memory, your heart, and your independence. Many fish sold as heart-healthy or protein-rich quietly carry toxins that build up in the body over years. For older adults who clear some toxins more slowly and who already face higher risks for cognitive and cardiovascular problems, those hidden hazards matter more than ever. Let's start with why this is especially important for you. Some contaminants found in seafood do not wash out in cooking. Mercury, in the form called methyl mercury, binds to tissues and accumulates up the food chain. Larger, older predator fish carry much higher concentrations. Persistent organic pollutants like dioxins and PCBs collect in fatty tissue and can remain in your body for years. Intensive aquaculture systems can leave residues from antibiotics, pesticides, and low-quality feed in farmed fish. Over decades, even moderate consumption of the wrong species can lead to measurable exposure. That's the invisible, cumulative risk I want you to understand. Not to frighten you, but to help you make wiser choices. Before we go further, drop your city and age in the comments so we can tailor future tips for your community. Now let's get into the meat of this video, actually, the fish of it. I'll walk you through 4 common fish seniors should stop or severely limit after 60, why each one is risky, and the practical alternatives that give you the nutrients you need without the same downside. Swordfish. Swordfish is a classic example of something that looks nutritious on the menu and packs a hidden punch. It's a large, long-lived predator. That makes it efficient at concentrating methyl mercury. People often see steak-like fillets and think of a healthy, high-protein choice. But for seniors, swordfish is one to avoid. Research and regulatory guidance consistently list swordfish among the high-mercury choices that older adults should not eat regularly. Methyl mercury is associated in studies with impaired cognition and in some population studies with higher risk of cardiovascular events when exposures are higher. The danger for seniors is cumulative exposure over a lifetime. Mercury doesn't disappear quickly, and the margin for harm narrows with age and with other health stresses. Practical action: avoid swordfish entirely as a regular part of your diet. If you see it on a restaurant menu or in a market, opt for one of the safer species I'll list later. If someone in your household wants to eat it, keep servings extremely rare and small, and check with a healthcare professional if you have a history of memory changes or heart rhythm problems. Large tuna species, albacore, white, and big eye. Tuna is everywhere. Salad bars, sandwiches, casseroles, and many people think tuna is a safe, convenient source of protein and omega-3s. That's true for light, skipjack tuna, which tends to have lower mercury levels. But large tuna species such as albacore, often sold as white tuna, and big eye are different. They grow bigger, live longer, and concentrate more methyl mercury. Regular consumption of these can raise blood mercury levels substantially. Why this matters for older adults: studies have observed links between higher mercury exposure and worse cognitive outcomes in older populations, and some epidemiological work has suggested associations with cardiovascular events. These are associations, not proofs, but they're strong enough that public health agencies recommend older adults be cautious with high mercury seafood. Practical action: favor light, canned tuna, skipjack, when you want tuna more often. Treat albacore and big eye as occasional treats at most. Limit to once a month or less for seniors, and prefer small portions. Always check the label for species and origin. If it's vague, ask. I'll say more about safe canned options in a moment. Tilefish, from the Gulf of Mexico. Tilefish deserves a specific call-out because of how high mercury can be in some populations. The species commonly referred to in advisories is tilefish from the Gulf of Mexico. These fish can contain very high methyl mercury levels. In fact, regulatory guidance singles Gulf tilefish out as a species older adults should avoid. Practical action. If a fish is labeled simply tilefish, ask whether it's from the Gulf. When in doubt, skip it. Restaurant dishes that list tilefish are best avoided by seniors unless the origin is clearly not Gulf of Mexico. Farmed tilapia. This one surprises a lot of people. Tilapia is inexpensive, widely available, and often advertised as a mild, family-friendly fish. But the risk here is system-specific, not species absolutely dangerous. Much of the tilapia widely sold in some markets comes from intensive pond farms, where feed can be poor quality and where farming practices may promote higher omega-6 content over omega-3, potentially increasing inflammation when eaten frequently. Some poorly managed operations also have issues with antibiotic use or contaminant residue. For seniors concerned about inflammation, metabolic health, or taking many medicines, frequent consumption of low-quality farmed tilapia is not the best option. That's not to say all farmed tilapia is unsafe. Responsibly managed farms with transparent feed and clean water practices are better. But in the average supermarket, it's reasonable for older adults to treat tilapia as a fish, to limit or replace with better alternatives. Practical action. Avoid eating farmed tilapia frequently. If you want tilapia occasionally, seek responsible sourcing. Look for clear country of origin and farm certifications, or choose a recommended alternative such as trout or cod. You might be thinking, aren't these fish labeled heart-healthy sometimes? The problem is that single-label thinking misses the messy reality of contaminants, farming practices, and lifetime exposure. That's why a targeted avoidance list for seniors is useful. But now, here's the good news. There are excellent fish choices that give you omega-3s, vitamin D, B12, selenium, and high-quality protein with much lower contaminant risk. These are practical, affordable, and delicious. Now the good news, 5 fish seniors can safely reach for more often: Arctic char. Arctic char is often described as a milder cousin of salmon. It comes from cold freshwater or cold water net pen systems and tends to have lower contaminant levels when responsibly produced. Nutritionally, Arctic char delivers heart and brain-friendly omega-3s along with vitamin D and quality protein, helpful for muscle maintenance, bone health, and inflammation control. For seniors, Arctic char can be an excellent dinner option that provides meaningful EPA and DHA without the higher mercury of larger predatory fish. Sourcing note: prefer char from reputable producers or labeled responsibly farmed cold water systems. If farmed, look for transparency about feed and farming method. When wild-caught, check region and sustainability certifications when possible. How often? Can be eaten once or twice a week in reasonable portions for most older adults. Quick cook. Brush with olive oil, lemon and herbs, and bake or pan-sear gently to preserve healthy fats. Sardines. If you want a low-cost, high-benefit choice, sardines are among the best. These small, short-lived fish are high in EPA and DHA, vitamin D, calcium when eaten with the bones, and high-quality protein, while having very low mercury because they're low on the food chain. Canned sardines are convenient, shelf-stable, and often affordable, perfect for seniors on fixed incomes. Nutrient advantages. Sardines supply concentrated omega-3s in a compact serving, and the small bones add calcium and phosphorus, useful for bone health. They're also an easy way to boost vitamin D, important because many older adults have low vitamin D levels. Sourcing note: choose sardines in water or olive oil with low added salt. Check the label for country of origin and use varieties labeled wild-caught when possible. How often? Safe to eat 1 to 3 times per week for most older adults. Quick idea: mash with avocado and lemon for toast, toss into a salad, or heat gently and serve with whole grain crackers. Rainbow trout, U.S. raised. Rainbow trout raised in the U.S., particularly in well-managed freshwater farms, tends to have good nutritional value with low contaminant burdens. U.S. trout farming commonly uses high standards for water quality and feed, producing a fish that's relatively rich in omega-3s and lean protein without the higher mercury found in larger species. Nutrient advantages: EPA, DHA, B vitamins, and a solid protein profile that supports muscle and metabolic health. Sourcing note: look for trout labeled U.S. raised and ask your fishmonger or grocer about farm practices if you're unsure. How often? Trout can be a regular part of a weekly rotation. 1 to 2 servings per week is reasonable for most seniors. Cooking tip: pan-sear with a light crust of herbs and breadcrumbs for texture. Wild Pacific cod. Pacific cod is a lean, mild-flavored fish with high-quality protein, B12, selenium, and low mercury levels relative to many larger species. Its shorter lifespan and colder habitat reduce the chance of long-term contaminant buildup. Nutrient advantages. Cod is a good option for seniors who need lean protein without the heavier fats. Selenium and B12 help with cellular health and energy metabolism. Sourcing note: prefer wild-caught Pacific cod, Alaska or Pacific regions, and check for sustainable harvest labels when possible. How often? Cod is safe to eat multiple times a week as part of balanced meals. Keep preparation low in added saturated fat. Bake, steam, or broil with herbs and vegetables. Wild-caught pollock, Alaskan. Alaskan pollock is an underrated star for seniors. It's low in mercury, widely recognized as a best choice by advisory bodies for frequent consumption, and provides a reliable source of protein. Pollock is an ingredient in many budget-friendly products, fish sticks, imitation crab, and frozen fillets, so it's accessible and cost-effective. Nutrient advantages: lean protein, modest omega-3s, and low contaminant risk make pollock a great everyday fish. Sourcing note: look specifically for wild-caught Alaskan pollock or labels that state Alaska, and check for trusted sustainability or origin markings where available. How often? Suitable for frequent consumption, several times per week is reasonable for most older adults when combined with other low-mercury choices. Putting it together: frequency guidance you can use. Here's a practical, conservative plan based on regulatory guidance and typical contaminant patterns for older adults. These are general ranges. Speak with your clinician for personalized advice. Avoid or stop eating regularly. Swordfish and Gulf tilefish. These are high enough in mercury to justify avoiding them as part of a regular diet for seniors. Severely limit large tuna species such as albacore and big eye. Treat these as occasional treats. Once a month or less is a conservative approach for seniors. Limit frequent consumption. Farmed tilapia from unclear or low transparency sources. If you like tilapia, seek responsibly farmed versions or replace with trout, cod, or pollock most weeks. Safe to eat more often: sardines, wild Alaskan pollock, wild Pacific cod, Arctic char when responsibly sourced, and U.S. raised rainbow trout. Most seniors can enjoy these 1 to several times per week, depending on overall diet, medication interactions, and health conditions. Why seniors are more vulnerable and what studies show. I'll keep this clear and simple. 2 features of aging matter here: accumulation and reduced clearance. Many contaminants of concern are stored in fat or bound in tissues and are not readily excreted. Over decades, low to moderate exposures can add up to higher body burdens. Second, physiological changes in aging, reduced kidney and liver clearance, changes in body fat composition, and the increased likelihood of other health problems make the impact of those burdens more meaningful. What about the science? Epidemiological studies have reported associations between higher methyl mercury exposure and worse cognitive performance or higher cardiovascular risk among older adults in some cohorts. A number of public health agencies, including the FDA and EPA, use evidence like this to create fish consumption advisories that specifically protect vulnerable groups such as pregnant people and young children, and their concerns apply to older adults too, though recommendations are tailored a bit differently. Remember, most of these studies show associations, not proven cause and effect. But the consistency of findings across different populations is enough to justify caution for seniors. I'll link key studies and authoritative advisories in the description so you can read the source material. When a study is cited in this video, think associated with or linked to rather than it proves, and use that as motivation to take manageable steps in your diet. Practical tips for shopping, dining out, and reading labels. Knowing which fish to avoid is only half the battle. The other half is being able to verify what you're buying or eating. Here are simple, actionable questions and checks to use right away. When buying packaged or canned fish, read the label for species and origin. Look for wild-caught Alaskan pollock, wild Pacific cod, or U.S.-raised trout. If the label is vague, just fish or white tuna, don't assume low mercury. For canned tuna, prefer light tuna. Skipjack for more frequent use. Reserve albacore, white tuna for rare use. Check sodium. Canned fish can be high in salt. Buy low sodium or rinse canned fish to reduce salt. At the fish counter or market, ask the fishmonger, what species is this? Where was it landed or raised? Request clarity about region, Alaska, Pacific versus Gulf of Mexico, for example. Ask whether the product is farm-raised or wild-caught, and if farmed, whether the farm uses responsible feed and has third-party oversight. Look for certifications and origin labels. Alaska, Marine Stewardship Council, MSC, or national equivalents can be helpful cues. No certification doesn't always mean bad, but transparency is a good sign. In restaurants, ask the server where the fish comes from and what species it is. If the staff can't answer or the menu is vague, choose a different dish or a safer fish, such as cod, pollock, or trout. Be wary of daily specials that don't specify origin. They may be broader categories that include high mercury species. Cooking and preparation tips to preserve benefits and reduce risks. How you prepare fish affects both nutrient retention and overall meal health. Here are simple habits that help. Favor baking, broiling, steaming, or gentle pan-searing over deep frying. Frying adds unhealthy fats that negate some benefits. Use lemon, herbs, and spices for flavor instead of heavy creams and butter. For canned fish, choose varieties packed in water or olive oil and with low added salt. Include fiber and plant foods with your fish meals, vegetables, whole grains, and legumes to support overall metabolic health. A few practical swaps. If you regularly eat tilapia, switch 2 weekly meals to trout or cod. If tuna sandwiches are a staple, try sardine mash with avocado one day and light tuna another week. If you like a white fish fillet, choose Pacific cod or pollock instead of swordfish or Gulf tilefish. Small changes add up and are easier to keep than extreme overhauls. When to talk with your healthcare provider, dietary guidance should fit your whole health picture. If you take blood thinners, are on multiple medications, have kidney dysfunction, or have concerns about cognitive changes, check with your clinician before making big changes. Also, if you suspect you've had long-term high exposure to mercury, for instance, you ate a lot of large predatory fish for decades, your provider can advise on testing and next steps. This is general nutrition guidance, not a diagnostic or treatment plan. Addressing common questions and myths. Isn't fish supposed to be healthy for the heart? Yes, many fish are excellent for heart and brain health. The point here is targeted avoidance and substitution. Replace a few high-risk species with safer, nutrient-rich options so you retain the benefits without added hazards. Are all farmed fish bad? No. That's an important nuance. Some farmed systems, especially in regulated environments with high welfare and feed standards, produce low-contaminant fish rich in omega-3s. The problem is variability. When you don't know the source or the standards, it's safer for seniors to choose species and producers with clear, responsible practices. Should I stop eating seafood entirely? Not at all. Seafood contains nutrients many older adults need. The goal is to choose the right fish more often and avoid those with higher contaminant risk. 3 practical takeaways to act on this week. 1. Stop or severely limit these 4: swordfish, large tuna species, albacore big eye, Gulf of Mexico tilefish, and low-transparency farmed tilapia. Treat them as rare treats rather than staples. 2. Replace them with the 5 safer choices: sardines, wild Alaskan pollock, wild Pacific cod, Arctic char, responsibly sourced, and U.S.-raised rainbow trout. These deliver omega-3s, vitamin D, selenium, and high-quality protein with lower contaminant risk. 3. Be an informed shopper and diner. Read labels for species and origin. Ask where the fish is from. Favor Alaska Pacific or certified suppliers. Choose low-sodium canned options and prefer baking or grilling over frying. A note about evidence and sources. When I mention studies in this video, I'm pointing to research that shows associations between higher mercury exposure and certain cognitive or cardiovascular outcomes in older adults. Regulatory bodies like the FDA and EPA base their advice on these types of data. I'll include links to the key studies and to official advisories in the description so you can read the evidence for yourself. Remember, associations don't equal guaranteed outcomes, but they are strong enough to guide conservative, practical behavior for seniors. Final thoughts. Protecting memory, heart, and independence. You've spent decades building the life you want to preserve. Time with family, hobbies, and the daily routines that keep you independent. Smart food choices are one of the most practical tools you have to support memory, heart health, and physical strength. That doesn't mean eliminating fish from your diet, far from it. It means choosing the right fish more often and letting go of a few popular choices that pose disproportionate risk for people over 60. If this message landed with you, share it with a friend or family member who loves seafood. And don't forget to subscribe for more senior-specific health tips. Tell me in the comments your city and age, and say which fish you eat most. Will you change anything after watching? I read those replies and we use them to shape future videos. I'll put the key resources and studies in the description so you can check the source material yourself. If you want a printable one-page shopping cheat sheet of avoid and choose fish tailored for seniors, let me know in the comments and I'll make that next. Thanks for watching and for taking one more practical step toward protecting your memory, heart, and independence, one smart fish choice at a time.